right, welcome to Dead Last, the show where we rank all of the horror, like all of it. And this month we are checking out the Child's Play series in order to get us ready for the new Chucky TV show. And as always, when I say we, I mean that I have invited my patrons on patreon.com to rank the 8 films with their favorite at number 1, all the way down to their least favorite at Dead Last. And here's the list of patrons that answered the call, to send those in. And now, with all of those rankings tallied up to give us a solid aggregate ranking, I've invited my panel here to discuss this series. So let's say hi, but before we do, really quick, let's take 1 second, move your cursor down on your screen there, and then click like for us. It takes 1 second and really helps us out. So now let's see who's with us today. We've got the familiar face to you guys. You've seen him. You love him. It is Mikey. Welcome back to the show.
What's up, everybody?
And Mikey, outside of working on many of your favorite horror films and TV shows, you can also find him on the fantastic Shindig Radio, which is found on Spotify and anywhere else that podcasts can be found. All right, and next up, new to the show, and actually very, very close to Mikey in more ways than one, in proximity and in emotion. We're talking to Mikey's wife, new wife, Fatima. Welcome aboard. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
We're glad to have you on, and we'll see how different your opinion is than Mikey's. I think we'll see some contrast there, I think.
Yes, definitely.
And you can also find Fatima has a really cool brand new Instagram, which is all Halloween and horror related, on Instagram, called Candy Corn Bruja. And also on the panel, coming back again, he's been on a couple of the Jam episodes, but this is his first full time on the panel. Let's give a warm welcome to your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete.
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me. I'm here with Chucky, and I'm ready to go. This is going to be some fun. I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. And just so you guys know, Uncle Pete has a brand new YouTube channel that is pretty awesome. Do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, thank you. It's called Your Friendly Neighborhood Uncle Pete, and I call my series Nails in a Coffin. I do a kill analysis. So we all look at the stupid decisions people make in horror movies, like they run upstairs instead of running outside, or they knock the villain down one time and they don't double tap and they wind up getting killed. So I talk about those stupid decisions people's make, and I rate them on a scale of 1 nail in a coffin to 4 nails in a coffin. The more stupid decisions, they don't get a lot of nails. We all know more nails are better, so the better to kill more nails, because with great kills, there must also come great nails.
All right, so go check that out. The channel is Your Friendly Neighborhood Uncle Pete. Go check that out right now. But let's check out some Child's Play rankings, because I was fairly excited to do this one because I pretty much love all of these movies. So this was a fun one to rewatch. And this month, I feel like a lot of people agreed because we had a great turnout with the rankings. I received 36 of them, which is, I think, one of the highest numbers we've gotten so far. So it's 36, including mine. So that means that the best score that a movie can get would be 36 points, and the worst score possible is 288 points. That's if everybody ranked it dead last. So let's take a look at what got close to that number, because with 243 points, the official winner of this month's Dead Last goes to the 2019 remake of Child's Play, which I think makes us all very happy here. It was ranked dead last 19 times. 19 out of 36 people gave it their dead last. The best score that it got was second place. It did get 1 second place ranking. And the panel, all 4 people that you're looking at right here on the screen, gave it dead last. All 4 of us. So apparently we all had a deep-rooted hatred for this movie.
Well, I have my remake bias. I hate remakes, basically across the board, unless they're from a very specific time in the 1980s, then they're okay. But I really hate this one. I don't like the idea of trying to take the whole good guy thing into the modern age. with Bluetooth and artificial intelligence and all that nonsense. It doesn't fit. There's something about it. The more simple the story, the better for me. The one thing that's hard for me is Mark Hamill's involvement. I love Mark Hamill. You know what I mean? He's like a Christ-like figure to me, and I hate saying anything bad about him, but he's just not Brad Dourif. I mean, Brad Dourif is Charles Lee Ray. There's nothing, you can do about that. So, I mean, that being said, it's also a lot of CG. There's some puppety stuff, which is okay, but, it's just not the same. It's not the same Chucky design. It's not the same vibe of the movie. There are some cool, enough kills, but it's at the end of the day, I think it's just kind of like flies in the face of the Child's Play, mythos.
They give a couple of good bits. Like, they are trying to create the thing of like, okay, well, this is a learning computer with no safety regimen. What happens? And you have that, what I think is probably one of the few cool scenes in the movie is where he's watching bits of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then starts to think that, okay, well, people are enjoying violence, so violence is good and everyone enjoys it, and that's what wins you friends, is sharing violence with them. And that's an interesting bit, and like the whole creating some sort of pathos for Chucky, it's kind of interesting. But then you just drop all that and you give me this weird sitcom plot of like trying to hide a head from the neighbors in gift wrap. We're gonna go and like swap it off, and now this Jack Black is in the movie for some reason, like with this weird like perverted camera stuff. Why are all these weird diversions to what the movie actually has to say that's interesting, which is the story of the Chucky doll learning? But then the movie doesn't want to give you that; it just wants to give you everybody else instead, and that's frustrating as hell.
If they continued with that theme, and it was like Chucky sort of like reluctantly was killing based on trying to impress these kids and being like, wait, you guys don't like this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like, that could have been an interesting, different way to go. But instead, I felt like they were just like, real bottom of the barrel screenwriting where you're checking off boxes. Like, oh, we need a drone because drones are modern.
Yes.
That's a thing. Oh, we need a guy that's got little tiny cameras and surveillance, and he's kind of a weird voyeur like webcam dude. Check. You know what I mean? They have all these little boxes instead of actually fleshing out a halfway decent story.
Yeah.
Going back to just talking about all the technology and everything, I don't like science fiction Chucky. I like my dolls haunted, and I feel like it just kind of takes away from the excitement and the scariness of Chucky. Like, Chucky is scary because he's a possessed, haunted doll, and it's like technology just is not scary to me, and no matter what you do about it. And I think another thing about the movie too is the characters are so unlikable. Like, you like Andy in the first one, and you're like scared for him and you're rooting for him. He's such a cute kid, and like you like his mom. She's just a single mom that's just like trying really hard. And his mom in this movie with her boyfriend, who's just kind of like this jerk, that it's just like you end up not liking her. You're not rooting for anybody. I feel like his friends are kind of crappy, and he's just kind of like weak and sad too much, as messed up as that sounds. I don't know. It's just one of those, like, when everybody just starts getting killed off, you're like, okay, fine, good. This is fine. Like, end the movie already. So I think that's kind of like, in a whole, like, that's a big part of it for me, is like I like being able to like root for characters in horror movies, and I don't think anyone is likable enough to really care about in this movie on top of everything else, like even Andy.
He was a whiny little kid. Now, they had a kid with a disability. They gave him a hearing aid. They never really used it. They could have done so much with that. Like, Chuck could be listening in, telling him what to do in school by looking at cameras and whatnot, giving him bad ideas, being a bad influence on Andy. Nothing. They wasted the Detective Norris character. He was just like, he didn't really even do anything. And if there's a remake, I at least want some fan service, and there was none in this movie. Even with the catchphrases at the end where he shoots Chucky, he's like, "This is the end." I'm like, "This is the end, friend." That was Andy's punchline, because there was so much character growth with Andy in the first one. This one, he was just a whiny kid. It was a nonsensical movie, a watermelon patch in the fall in Chicago with Christmas lights on. It just didn't make any sense. It was just a bad movie. And like Mikey said, I'm sad to say Mark Hamill was part of this.
Yeah, I mean that is another thing that bummed me out because I Mark Hamill does such a good job with voices and everything, and I feel like he was so restrained as Chucky here. It was like he was holding back, and part of me felt like he didn't want to try and match what he did with the Joker. But I feel like Mark Hamill's Joker voice is kind of what Chucky needed anyway. But oh well.
It's so obvious that that was the note, right? Like, don't do the Joker. Like, you can't, and then it's like, what? But you're almost like waiting for it. I don't know. It's weird.
It's like not even a cool enough looking doll. It's like you want to make something super futuristic and then you make it look like a baby doll.
No, yeah.
Like,
I mean,
kids would choose a Furby before they choose that Chucky.
And they try to do that Stranger Things vibe with Andy and his plucky group of friends. They didn't do anything with it. They're trying to copy Stranger Things and it just failed.
Well, let's get away from that mess and move on to the real Chucky. And let's see which of his actual movies was ranked the lowest. Because at number 7, I'm guessing that this is not going to be a huge surprise. This was, for a while there, pretty closely locked. There was actually one point where it was a tie for dead last. But with 217 points is Seed of Chucky, which was ranked dead last 11 times, and its best score that it got was first place. It was ranked first place twice. 2 people gave it their top spot. On this panel, Uncle Pete had it the lowest. You had it in 7th place, which is where it landed. I had it a little higher in 6th place. Mikey a little bit higher than that with 5th place. And Fatima, you had it in 4th place. So clearly you had a little bit more love for this one than the rest of us. How do you feel about Seed of Chucky?
I actually really love this movie. At one point when I was like really thinking about my list, I had it in 3rd place because I like it so much. I love Jennifer Tilly in this movie, and I love how she just doesn't take herself seriously at all. And she's just having so much fun with her character and with Tiffany. And it's just a really good horror comedy. I like the way it's written. And I found myself laughing a lot at the dialogue and just the dynamic between all the characters. I like Glenn and Glenda a lot, as cheesy as a lot of people think it is. I just think it's really fun and campy. And I really enjoy it when I'm watching it. And I think the kills are really good in it too. And it's kind of like that early 2000s vibe with horror movies that I kind of dig and like. Mikey gets on me all the time. I make him watch all these early 2000s horror movies with me it's just really nostalgic to me too. But I think it's just a fun horror comedy. It really is more of a horror comedy, but I thought it was just written really well.
I don't dislike this movie. Just when you compare it to the other films, I don't like it as much. And similar to what Fatima said, I love Jennifer Tilly. She carries this movie. And she is just a blast to watch. She's a lot of fun. It's silly. It's funny. It's ahead of its time with Glenda and Glenn with the whole gender identity disorder. And this movie was like a long time ago. So they were kind of a little ahead of its time because that's really popular now. But it felt like a Chucky movie. It was silly and funny. It had great kills. I just didn't like it as much as the other films in the series. But you hand this to me and I'll watch it any day.
This is kind of weird because I had this as my number 6th movie. But I love Seed of Chucky. I love it. I feel very in the minority on that. I know a lot of people just really don't care for it as a movie. But I'll watch it any day. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. It feels like Bride of Chucky, but just turned up the absurdity level of it. And I kind of appreciated that. Plus, you give me John Waters in a movie, like playing a sleazy photographer. Like I'm gonna be on the side of that movie, wanting it to do well. I definitely think there's some things that fall a little flat. I don't think the Britney Spears jokes really lands as much as it did back in the early 2000s. But so there's definitely some things in there that don't hit as well as I feel as if they should. But it's a really damn enjoyable movie, and I think the only reason why I have it ranked a little bit lower is because it just doesn't feel the same as the rest of the movies, so it kind of almost for a moment feels like a movie that's outside of all the other ones. But beyond that, I have a huge appreciation for it, and I really enjoy it. So Sorry to all the Seed haters out there, but
It does
I
kind of feel like a Chucky parody or like a satire,
yeah.
like a scary movie type of vibe. But I think that that's why I enjoy it so much, because I'm a sucker for the first two scary movies. I just think they're so great. But it does kind of have that vibe where it takes away from Chucky in that way, where it's just like, is this a real Chucky movie or is it not?
Yeah, well, I mean, it has one of the personally, in my opinion, it has one of the best moments in the entire series. It's near the ending where he embraces being Chucky, and he's just like, I don't want to be human. I'm Chucky, the killer doll. That's
Yeah.
who I am, and I'm like, and
Yep.
I love that bit because it actually is a pretty defining moment of that whole series, and I think it's great. And it's just in there.
I went into it when I first saw it in the theater. I was kind of hesitant because I didn't know. It was a weird time for horror. Like Fatima was saying, like I'm not a huge fan of horror movies coming out at this time, but I was like, we'll give it a shot. And the John Waters thing really knocked it over the top for me. I was like, I love this. This kill is one of my favorites in the series with the hydrochloric acid melt and all that stuff. I think it's great. I love in the Freddy-esque sort of way that we are well into like a completely different dimension of wacky in the Child's Play series by this time, and I'm totally into it. Like it's so over the top that it's fun, and that kind of inevitable break the fourth wall move that these franchises eventually do, I think is a natural place to go, right? I think that's kind of awesome, and you're getting some of the most fun Chucky ever. He looks great. I like that it's a direct sequel to Bride of Chucky in that sort of way. And it's like you're in that over the top Chucky world that I really like, even though it is so far removed from the first movie.
Well, then that takes us up now to our number 6 spot, which did pretty well. Again, the gaps in between all of these movies was pretty broad. There really weren't a lot of close calls here. But at 198 points is Child's Play 3, which was ranked dead last 3 times, so a big drop off in the number of times it was ranked dead last. And the best score that it got was second place, which it got ranked twice. 2 people gave it second place spot. On the panel, I liked it the least. I gave Part 3 my 7th place spot. Uncle Pete had it in 6th place. Mikey, you had it in 3rd place, and Fatima, you had this ranked the highest in 2nd place. I really enjoy Child's Play 3. I think it's a lot of fun to watch, and I do not mind watching it. It is a enjoyable flick. To me, when you watch it with the rest of them, I feel like the Chucky movies has done such a good job of sort of reinventing itself and switching things up a little bit. And when you had Part 3 that was kind of the same plot as the first 2 again, and even they admitted that the 3rd one was kind of a little bit of running out of ideas because they were making them so quick right off the bat of one to the other that it was almost like a retread. And I feel like that's the only thing that knocks it down for me is that lack of originality and spark to it. But even though it's still really enjoyable, you're getting Chucky in a fun new environment. You're getting into the military school, and they definitely take advantage of that military school environment to make some fun segments, like of course the paintball segment. I love that that garbage truck scene is just amazing. I love that whole bit, and there's a lot of fun things in here. But this is one of those cases where I have it lower, but it's just a matter of I like the other ones more so than I just dislike this one.
This is the most nostalgic Chucky movie for me because this is one that I remember constantly seeing on Sci-Fi as a kid and watching it the most. I watched this Chucky the most, and so it's just kind of like my biggest memory of Chucky, and I just always loved it whenever it came on. And my second reason for why I love it so much is kind of like the reason why I love that movie Clifford with Martin Short, is I'm obsessed with the haunted house scene when they go to the carnival. Like, I want to be in that haunted house. I want to ride it. I want to go in there. And it's just such a cool memory. Like, I remember as a kid watching that movie and just being like, this is the coolest scene. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. This is awesome. It just is very reminiscent of like just being a kid and being in awe of like a set and what's going on in a movie and just being pulled into it. if that makes any sense. I loved that haunted house scene. I liked the way everything was going down in there. I liked the kills. I liked everything that was going on, but that was like my biggest memory about Chucky 3.
Child's Play 3, I like, but it's my least favorite of like the original trilogy 3, you know? And I just feel like you were saying, you know, so they're looking for something. Like what environment do we put him in? Like, you know, what do we do? Is he going to space yet? Maybe not yet, but maybe he's going to military school. You know what I mean? It's like, but you focus too much on like the bully military kid and stuff like that. I'm like kind of annoyed by stuff like that. And I don't particularly like the new Andy. I love the old Andy, and that switch was difficult for me. And like Fatima was saying, that ending is so great, but it's sort of like apes off part 2. It's like, where do we have a climax to this? Like, where can we do it? I don't know. Like, they leave the military school and stumble upon a carnival where there is a massive haunted house, and you're just like, okay, that's where we're going. You know what I mean? And it works because it's just fun, but it is pretty ridiculous. But still, those first 3, I mean, you guys know I'm such a fan of all the original old school stuff. So, you know, those first 3 are my favorites. You know?
I think one thing that hurt this movie was coming out so soon after Child's Play 2. I think it was like 9 or 10 months later. It came out after Child's Play 2, so there might have been a little fatigue there. And plus the way they speed aged Andy. Okay, now he's a teenager, so I think that threw some people off, but it has some great kills and they're dark. Like when Chucky changes the bullets and the one kid kills the other. That's pretty dark. And when the other kid jumped on top of the grenade. So you got children dying right now. And the third act is just something else in the carnival. The way he gets chopped up at the end. I do enjoy it, but like the only thing I think it hurt coming out so soon after Child's Play 2 and speed aging Andy, because Alex Vincent, you saw so much character growth in the first 2 movies. And like, you're like, what happened to him? Because he seems like, you know, not as brave as he was in Child's Play 1 and 2, but still a very solid movie.
See, I didn't even think about that. Like, I like the fact that it came out so shortly after 2. It makes it even more ridiculous. You know, you're basically going into the future at this point in part 3 and showing what will Andy be like at 14 or 15 or whatever he's supposed to be. It's like, this is insane. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, you know how I feel about massive time jumps in movie franchises.
That's your bread and butter.
So now going up into our number 5 movie. Pretty exciting here. Number 5 with 175 points is the most recent Chucky movie, Cult of Chucky, which is the one that leads into the TV show. It was ranked dead last one time, and the best score that it got was second place, which it got twice, which seems to be a theme for this so far. On the panel, Mikey and Fatima, you guys both had it ranked the lowest in 6th place. I had it in 5th place, and Uncle Pete, you had it the highest in 2nd place. So you loved Cult of Chucky a little bit more than the others. What did you love about Cult?
Fiona Dorff. I mean, I fell in love with her in Curse of Chucky, and I just love her character in Cult. And it has the white background, the white asylum and everything, and the stark contrasting of the reds with the blood and everything. It just really sat with me, and I really just fell in love with it. They tied up all the other movies with Curse and Cult. So they kind of, you know, that continuity was all tied in. He mentions Kent Academy, Kyle, and everything throughout these movies. And you bring Andy Barclay back, Jennifer Tilly in it. It's just, I love the cast of characters, Multiple Malcolm and everything. And the deaths were, you know, when she died, when she was on the table and Chucky hits that canister and it breaks the glass and it falls down in slow motion with the snow. It's just beautiful to me. So I really enjoyed the setting on it. The characters in it were fun, a lot of fun kills, and Chucky wins. So I got to rank that high.
I kind of really enjoy Cult, but here's my thing, is that I feel as if the ending of Cult of Chucky, if the last like 20 minutes of Cult of Chucky had paid off as well as the setup of Cult of Chucky was, I think I would have ranked this even higher, because I loved the setup. I thought that the setting in the asylum was fantastic. The characters were great. The kills were some of the best. They had some of the best like gore out of the entire franchise in this movie. But then, like, from a story standpoint, the ending kind of just doesn't tie up enough of the loose ends, and it feels very fractured. I find myself liking the first hour of the movie more than I like the last half hour. Plus, I do think that the doll doesn't quite look right. There's something about it that just doesn't work for me. And the replacement voice that they got, the person that did the normal Chucky voice, like the
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
is just terrible. And every time I hear it, it just completely throws me out because it's a completely different voice than the doll has had all of the previous times, and it was just very off-putting. But I did love the multiple doll stuff. I thought that was all really cool and interesting way to take the story. But again, like I said, I don't feel as if it all paid off that well.
I love Andy being back, and I love the idea of the multiple dolls. I love the idea of the original Chucky head still living and breathing and being tortured by Andy. Now Andy's getting his revenge, and he's kind of a badass now, which I kind of love. I also like the setting. I like that, Brad Dourif's daughter's in there, and it might just be me, and it's kind of cheesy maybe, and I'm, but I get that vibe. I feel that actual connection. Like, she reminds me of him. And, at the end, I get it. I'm like, cool, man. Like, he's finally become human, and he's become human and come full circle into like the actual real life beyond the fourth wall daughter of Charles Lee Ray. This is kind of nuts and awesome. I like that. But the climax does leave a lot to be desired, because what happens to Andy? He basically gets locked up and we never see him again. I mean, this whole thing, we've been like cheering him on as the champion and the original kid that was tormented by this doll, and then he just sort of disappears. I'm sure they're going to try to wrap that up as we go into the series now, but at the end of the day, I wanted more of that in the actual ending of the movie.
Yeah, I think I agree with Uncle Pete on this one. I think just the best part of this movie for me is Fiona Dourif, like as Nika. She really does a cool transformation when she turns into Chucky. Like, you can see her become Charles Lee Ray. It's almost like her face changes without it changing. And she does the laugh really well, and she just looks good. And you're almost just seeing this really cool transformation with her. I thought that was probably the best part of it for me, which made me still enjoy it. And I also agree with you, Josh, on my biggest issues with it are the loose ends tie-ups. Like, maybe I missed something, but I feel like Andy shows up and you're like pumped that he shows up, but like, he doesn't do anything. Like, nothing really happens with him. And I mean, he brings that Chucky doll with the cut hair. Why? What's the point of that? And then he shows up and he gets locked up in that padded room, and then they pretty much just leave him in the padded room. And it's cool that like Chucky wins, but it's just like, to bring back such an iconic, important character and then not really do anything with him. I was just kind of like, what the heck is going on? It's just those little things that they don't tie up for me is what kind of frustrates me a little bit and makes me not really happy about it.
No! All right, well, now we're moving up into the top half of our list. This is a short list, only 8 movies. Goes quick. In the top half of the list, coming in at number 4 with 159 points is Curse of Chucky, which was ranked dead last twice. I got 2 dead last rankings. The best score that it got was also second place, which it also got twice. The last 3 movies have had their best score being second place, which got twice each. On the panel, Mikey and Fatima, you guys both had this the lowest at 7th place. Uncle Pete, you had this in 5th place, and I had it the highest. I had it in 4th place. Because I really was taken aback by this one, how much I enjoyed it. I think coming off of Seed of Chucky, which I enjoyed, I was kind of braced for more silliness. And I think the reason why I have this ranked so highly is because I did not know what to expect from this movie. And it kept me questioning it, especially when you're watching it the first time. You don't know quite what's going on. Like, is this a reboot? Is it a remake? What's happening here? Is this a new Chucky? How's this going down? And then when they get that big reveal of pulling off the strips and there's the stitches underneath, and you realize that, like, oh no, this is just Chucky and everything is all one universe. And I felt like that was fantastic. The characters are, I think, the only downside, because the only character that I really was on the side of was Nika. The rest of the characters, I didn't truly care if they lived or died, which was probably the negative I'd give about the movie and why I wouldn't rank it higher than I did. But I did. I really enjoyed it.
It's the one that I don't really want to watch at all. You know, I mean, I think it's pretty incredible. It's really well shot. I think Don Mancini is really showing, like, look, I'm a director. Like, I'm legit at this point. You know, I have issues with the flashbacks because, you know, you have all these movies where you're basically learning who Charles Lee Ray is through the doll. Like, what does Chucky do that is what Charles Lee Ray is? And he's like this brute force, just murder machine. He's not this like emo serial killer that has like issues about sexuality. That's like, I'm in love with this weird woman. And now I have this flashback where I'm finally seeing Brad Dourif again. And he's this like kind of weirdo who's stalking girls. Like, we've never seen this. This is not a Chucky thing whatsoever. So I'm getting this kind of like, you know, psychosexual, like serial killer documentary vibe out of that, which is not Chucky to me.
I just didn't like it at all. There's not anything about this movie that I can say that I like, besides Nika. Didn't care for the storyline very much, and just having big issues with the flashbacks with Charles Lee Ray, like, for exactly the reasons that Mikey said. It just doesn't make sense. It's not who we've come to know who Charles Lee Ray supposedly was. I mean, maybe this was part of his weird, you know, psychopath stuff that he did in private, but it's like, you know, especially like in Bride of Chucky with, you know, Tiffany coming to him and talking about like, oh, getting married and having babies, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And he's so like, absolutely not. He's like so against it and so macho. And so, you know, when they throw this into the movie with him being obsessed with this woman, with Nika's mom, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like Charles Lee Ray. It's just like, he would never be obsessed with someone like this, and he would never want to go pick up the kids from school. I don't know. It just didn't feel like Chucky to me. And then CGI Chucky coming down the stairs is just aggravating.
That's a big deal, honestly.
Yeah.
That one kind of
It's like, oh no, because it really is the first time that they do that. In all honesty, if you think about it, if you think about all the other movies, that's the very first time you get a CGI Chucky. And it's so disappointing because you're like, they've done it. They've finally done it. And how often are they going to keep doing it? You know, it just kind of leads up to like, no, we're just going to keep getting more CGI Chucky. And that's gross.
Like I said, this is right in the middle for me. And I'll agree with everybody said about the characters. They're just real, with exception of Nika. They're really unlikable. So the monk Barb is going to have a Skype sex call with the babysitter while lying in bed next to the husband. She takes the wedding ring off like that's going to make it okay. And she's in the next room. It was just a lot of dumb stuff.
Her daughter, like even weirder. It's like, okay.
But I do like Don Mancini. The way he shot it was beautiful. The dark Gothic mansion, I really liked when Chucky pushes Nika over the banister and she flies down in slow motion. Beautiful, beautiful shot. I really enjoy that. And I do love the part when Alice, I believe the girl's name is, she's under the covers and she goes, Chucky, I'm scared. He laughs. He's like, you effing should be. That part was kind of cool. And I love what they did with the wheelchair. Chucky comes at her with an axe. She pulls it up. He hits her in the leg and he's looking like, you didn't react. Those little points I really enjoyed about it. That is what made it, you know, a little bit higher on my list.
All right, top 3 time coming in. I feel like this is one that I feel like here's where some people might not know exactly what's coming up next. But the number 3 with 130 points is Bride of Chucky. The worst score that it got, never got ranked dead last. Worst score it got was 7th place, which 4 people did rank it in 7th place. The best score that it got was 1st place. It got 1st place 6 times. It was pretty solid ranking there. On the panel, Uncle Pete and Mikey had it the lowest at 4th place, which is still a respectable number. I had it higher in 2nd place, and Fatima, you had it in first place. So the most love here for Bride of Chucky. So what was it about that one that you loved?
It's just my favorite. The more I watch it, the more I love everything about that movie. I love Tiffany's character so much just because she's just so iconic. And then when you get the two of them together and they're like tag team of like killing and just their dynamic and their banter, it's just perfect to me. Like, I really, really love it. I love stitched up Chucky. I love the storyline of this movie. John Ritter's in it and he's such an awesome actor, but he's so hateable in this movie. And just the kills and little quirky things, it kind of starts on that whole horror comedy thing that like Seed of Chucky really takes like full swing. I don't know. I love the energy of that movie, and Tiffany and Chucky to me is just perfect. Like, I love them together. It's like now I want to have my Chucky, and I always want to have Tiffany like by his side, because I just think that they're like the perfect slasher team in the horror world.
I have this in second place because I also really love this one. I mean, I like pretty much all the Chucky movies, but there's something about this one that really stands out to me, and I feel as if it's because it's the first one that really messed with the formula that it had already established, because the first three movies are essentially the same kind of a formula. It's a good formula, but then this one just says, let's just throw a whole bunch of different monkey wrenches in here. You've got the addition of Tiffany, which was really made everything fresh. It kind of changed the whole dynamic of the Chucky character and the entire series. I loved that. I loved the revamping of his look to go with the Franken Chucky kind of a look, which again really distinguished him from the other three. And I thought that was great. You give me John Ritter in anything, and I'm happy. Anything. And I will also say that conclusively that this movie takes place in the 90s because a character knows something about flowers, so therefore he's gay.
Actually, it's an orchid. A Cymbidium orchid. You put it in a vase and drop an aspirin in the water. It should last you the whole week. Or so I read. Nice meeting you.
When I first did this list, I wrote down Bride of Chucky as number one right away. Because like Fathom, Franken Chucky is my Chucky. If someone says Chucky, I'm thinking it's Stitch Chucky. That's my favorite Chucky. I'm thinking Stitch Chucky. It was a fun movie, except I love the references right away. Freddy's glove, the chainsaw, when they killed John Ritter. Oh, I've seen that somewhere before because he has all the nails in his head. It was Rob Zombie's song in the beginning. It was like almost like a music video. The only reason this is a little lower is because Katherine Heigl and her boyfriend were just so unlikable. It was just so annoying and cookie cutter star-crossed lovers type thing. That's where it lowered it down a little bit. But Franken Chucky is my Chucky. His chemistry with Jennifer Tilly is just Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly's chemistry is just off the marks. The way they just play off of each other, and it was a lot of fun of a movie.
It goes into that kind of second like rung of Chucky, where now we're in this kind of fun comic book world, even with the colors and stuff like that. This is Ronnie Yu's little vacation in horror that he did in the late 90s, early 2000s, which I'm not too much of a fan of, but it totally works because stylistically it works with the Rob Zombie, as Uncle Pete mentioned, and like that kind of late 90s sort of vibe, which is incredibly douchey, but at the same time, it's just sort of right. Alexis Arquette looks like Marilyn Manson with all his goofy makeup and he's all gothed out. And, Jennifer Tilly is so obviously an awesome like 90s rocker babe, but like it's so cheesy that it works. And to introduce a character like hers this late, in the franchise, where you're just like, new character, new idea, where's this coming from? You have to get somebody Jennifer Tilly perfect to do that, and it works so well. It's the perfect kind of like end cap punctuation to the first three movies, because like we said, by the end of Child's Play 3, they're like, what are we doing here? What are we going to do here? And they kind of need that sort of kind of revolution, sort of resurrection of the whole thing. How are we going to freshen this up? And they totally do. Jennifer Tilly.
All right, now coming in at number 2, Second place here. I thought that this was actually going to be a little closer battle. But at second place, with 103 points, is Child's Play 2. The second film in the series, the worst score that it got was 7th place, which it got 2 times. And the best score that it got was first place, which it got 7 times. 7 people ranked it as number 1. On the panel, Fatima and I had it ranked at the lowest in 3rd place. Mikey, you had it a little higher in 2nd place. But Uncle Pete, you had it as your number 1. You gave it your first place spot. So what was it about Child's Play 2 that put it above the rest?
Right away, I love the opening, the way it connected to the first. They're reassembling Chucky, and then, everything goes wrong and people are dying. I think this is where the animatronics and the puppeteering really excelled. My favorite part, when he's walking out of the closet, and he's got the yardstick in his hand, and he goes, "You've been very naughty, Miss Kettlewell," and then he starts killing her with the yardstick. The screen pans out, and you still see the yardstick going up and down. I love Andy's character development. From that first movie when he's crying inside that little room he's in, and now he's fighting back against Chucky. It's really fun. I love the one-liners in it. I thought the pacing was great. There's not really any slowdowns. The pacing was really cool, how it moved. And that finale, what a finale. Just, he rips his legs off. He stabs his hand he's putting a knife on his hand. The special effects are just fantastic. And the ending is just definitely my favorite Chucky movie.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect sequel to the first movie. It's a continuation of Andy, which I love. Uncle Pete, you mentioned that shot of him coming out of the closet. I mean, that is the definitive Chucky shot in the entire franchise for me. Like, I can see it right now. The second you mention Chucky, that's a scene I see. You have this perfect animatronic walking puppet, which is very difficult to do, especially at the time. You don't see these sort of completely sort of seamless, it's shot just so perfectly, and you don't see any of the cables or any nonsense. And it's just, it's so great, and that alone makes it a number 2 for me. Just that shot, just being a creature effects person and just like seeing that puppet, knowing what went into it. It's so awesome. Even the opening credits, where they're putting them back together and like building them again, in the doll factory. It's just so awesome. And it's so over the top, like as if this toy factory is this super high tech, state of the art, Rube Goldberg machine of making these stupid dolls. You know what I mean? It's hilarious, but it's awesome. And it's a great part too.
Brad Dourif just keeps getting, this is where I think he really started to nail that role, even just completely figure out exactly what he's doing with Chucky. But to me, the thing that solidifies this one as being the great sequel is that ending. That ending is, it's very Terminator-esque with the whole factory attack, and it feels like it goes on for a long time, but it also doesn't overstay its welcome. But I will say that is the most inefficient warehouse that I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, why would they stack up the dolls to be a maze, complete with dead ends? Like, what workers were they trying to mess with there to be like going down to pack up the dolls? Oh, dead end, turn around. Like, that's, I don't know. And then plus, that whole assembly line, you think of an assembly line in terms of saving cost and whatever, but there's a whole lot of space set up to do, there's an entire area to just plug in the eyes. I feel like it would probably be a lot more cost efficient to just have that be a very small section and have a worker just, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
The only reason why it got 3rd place for me was just because I'm not a huge fan of Kyle's character. And I think it's because of the actress that's playing her. I made comments to Mikey about this when we were watching it. At the end, I feel like she's not very emotional about what's going on, but then it's like she's also not hard enough to make it believe like she's just being strong. It's just kind of like she's just not giving it something to me to make it believable. And like you guys said, I agree with you. It's such an iconic ending scene to be in that factory and have everything go down the way that it's going down. But I mean, it's like you're finally getting the Chucky that you're waiting for in the first one. I think it's like you're getting his personality, you're getting his energy, you're getting his kills, and it's finally just it's like Chucky's finally coming into his own in this one, and it's pretty awesome.
It's funny because this is one that I really thought was going to be a tough race because a lot of things I've seen online, and then when I watch other people's ranking videos, very frequently you'll see Child's Play 2 ranked above, like as the top spot. So I think Uncle Pete, your opinion of having it number one is shared a lot out there. So I did really think that this was going to be a closer race for first place, but it ended up not being very close because at number one, with a mere 71 points, is of course the original Child's Play. And the worst score that it got was 7th place. It did get one 7th place ranking. And the best score that it got was 1st place, obviously, which it got 21 times. 21 out of 36 people chose this as their number one spot. On the panel, Fatima, you gave it a little lower score with 5th place. Uncle Pete, you gave it 3rd. And Mikey and I gave it 1st. So we'll end with us gushing about it. So let's go to Fatima, who ranked it a little lower at number 5th. Number 5th?
I mean, of course, this is...
What does number 5th... What does number 5th mean? Number 5th?
It's too... Okay. It's too much of a slow burn for me. I feel like you don't get enough Chucky in Child's Play. I feel like they set it all up and it's just too slow. It's too slow for me. And I mean, it's great. It's awesome. It's classic. It's iconic, but I want to love the original Child's Play because of course it's like the beginning, but I just don't love it. I feel like it just takes too long to get him out there and to get him going and to get you excited about the fact that this kid is in possession of this crazy doll. And I don't know, it just takes a little too long for me in that movie for you to get introduced to Charles Lee Ray as the doll Chucky.
All right, Uncle Pete, you've got it. I guess I'm going to keep this going. You have it as number 3rd.
I mean, this movie deserves to be in a number one spot. It's a rightful title for it. I just like the other ones a little bit better, but so much works in this. What Fatima said, you don't see too much too soon, and I kind of like that. It almost had a Jaws feel to it. Like the first 2 kills, you don't see Chucky, so I kind of like how Tom Holland didn't show too much too soon. The one thing I disliked is that reveal. They spoiled it in the trailers with the batteries falling out and the head turning around. I think that was kind of spoiled in the trailers. But for 1988, the effects are awesome. Multiple false finishes to finally killing Chucky at the end. The movie definitely deserves to be number one. I do have the only problem with this movie. Andy's making breakfast for his mom. Why in every single TV show and movie, when you make toast, it burns? They take regular bread, stick it in the toaster, and it comes up black and smoking. Every toaster in movies just burns toast.
There's so much about this movie that is right, and it's great. It is a little disorienting to see Chris Sarandon playing a straightforward, heroic lead. It's not really a character that I'm used to seeing him do, but he does it really well because Chris Sarandon does everything well. The guy's awesome and handsome. And you know what's weird is in the very opening of the movie they have that full-size Chucky costume from like a fake TV show that he's watching. And it's like a guy in like a full-body Chucky suit, and I don't know how they never pulled that thing back out because that thing is terrifying as hell. I was just like looking at that thing, I'm like, that's scarier than Chucky is. What is that? This is just the perfect setup of the elements that you're looking forward to for the rest of the series. I mean, it establishes Chucky and his character and what his ultimate goals are, and it's just a great setup, and it's kind of funny because I had always thought of the original Child's Play as just kind of like a good fun B horror movie, and it wasn't until I watched the remake and I went back and I rewatched the original that I realized just how damn good that it is, and I feel like the first one doesn't get enough play as being the horror classic that it really is. Maybe it was because it was a little later in the 80s. Maybe it missed that whole early 80s iconic horror era. I don't know.
It's a perfect movie. It's a perfect horror movie. I'm a big Tom Holland fan, just as a writer and director. Josh, we actually won the Tom Holland round at Horror Trivia that one time when we got to meet him. He came by and gave us a little gift bag. That was like the coolest thing ever. I love Chucky, the design of the doll, Kevin Yeager is a hero of mine, in the creature effects world, and it was sculpted by Jim Cagle, who did the Prophecy Bear and the Freddy Snake, and this guy sculpted my whole childhood, basically, So it's a big deal. And the kind of folk tale of it is that there's a makeup artist. What was his name? Ron Pipes. He's a really decorated makeup artist. He's done a bunch of different things, and he was working at Yeager Studios at the time, and he had this real cherubic kind of childlike face, and there's some speculation that they used Ron Pipes' face as sort of an inspiration for Chucky, and his little cute cheeks and his little button nose, and it's kind of hilarious. And that was sort of the gag for the longest time. And a few years ago, we went to this Hollywood Halloween party, and Ron Pipes he came as Chucky.
Oh, that's funny.
That was amazing. And that was the first time you told me that story, because I was like, wow, that guy really pulled it off. And you're like, because that is Chucky. He's right there. That's really him. And I'm like, what? Yeah, it was nuts. He seriously, he does look exactly like Chucky. So I believe this story.
This is one of the perfect things, because Mikey, you're talking about the design of Chucky. The design of Chucky is perfect, because if you had the regular Chucky doll, like he has in the beginning, the good guy doll, and you showed that looks like a doll that a kid would have. Like, it seems like something real that would actually happen. And when its face distorts into like the Chucky face and whatever, and it's like moving and everything, it seems like the same doll, just obviously altered for facial expressions. And it really works. Whereas you see other adult movies with dolls, the Buddy doll in the remake, there's no way that doll works as a real doll. It's obviously something that is supposed to look kind of creepy. And even like Annabelle, no one would ever buy Annabelle as an actual doll. It's a horror movie doll, but Chucky seems like a real thing.
It's just cool. I like to watch the movie as an effects nerd and try to point out when they're using the different heads and be like, oh, that's that head and that's that head. And it's they have the one that's just the flailing body. It's just like indiscriminately flailing its limbs, and they're just fighting it off. And it's just so perfect. It just works.
It's Muppet Chucky.
Yeah. Right? All right, so there you have it. It's 8 movies in a pretty definitive ranking. I feel like this is, since none of these were that close, this is one of the more definitive rankings that we've seen. Let's take a look at it, because I feel like I'm not mad about anything here. As long as the remake was dead last, I was happy. There's several of these movies that I'd be okay with switching around at any particular time, because I feel like anytime I rewatch this series, I might like ones more than I do others. But very happy that the remake is dead last. I'm also very happy that the first place, that the original movie is in first place. But all right, so let us know down below in the comments if you agree with this list, or if there's anything in here that you're just very angry about, which is usually what you want to leave a comment about anyhow. If you vehemently disagree with the remake being dead last, just remember, you're not just arguing with the 4 of us, you're arguing with an additional 15 people, because 19 people ranked it dead last. And if you really want to help change these rankings, join up at patreon.com/movietimelines, because if you are a patron, you can actually send a ranking every single month. We do a different either film franchise or a different theme every month and rank them, and you can be a part of that by going there. Also, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe to the channel, click that little bell, do the 50 things that you need to do in order to keep getting notifications about videos. But of course, also go check out the channel of your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete. Please check out Mikey on Shindig Radio, and of course, check out Candy Corn Bruja on Instagram, because you'll get some good Halloween stuff, lots of great stuff. And of course, I want to thank you guys for coming on and helping me talk about these movies. I love talking about these movies. And I want to thank my patrons, as always, for not only just contributing to these rankings, but also for just helping out the channel. Thank you guys. Even if you don't send in the rankings, you are very, very appreciated. And you guys are appreciated for just watching these videos. And I thank you very much, and we'll see you very, very shortly for another great one. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you
This was
very
really
much.
fun. Thanks for having me.